Okay. Thanks. Hi, everybody, for joining today. And thank you to John and Terry for inviting me to come. I really appreciate it. And this is definitely my favorite topic to discuss. And so I'm going to walk through a number of items and I'll share my screen and we can get started. And I will definitely be available after the presentation and look forward to your questions. So as John mentioned, I'm the founder and executive director of Cool the Earth, and Drive Clean Bay Area is one of our campaigns that we run. We, for 15 years, since 2006, have run a schools program that teaches children about climate change and small things they can do, and gives them a way to go back and get their parents engaged also in taking action. So that program I started at my kids' school when they were in kindergarten and first grade. They're now in college. And it's run in over 500 schools in the US, and an additional 100 schools internationally in 5 different countries. And it's been in 4 languages. And collectively, we've reached about 500,000 families, and they've taken about that same number of carbon reducing actions. So that program still continues on, and that's kind of our cornerstone foundation. And then about 2 years ago, as electric vehicles became more accessible from a cost perspective, as well as from the number of models and the range and charging infrastructure, we launched this major campaign called Drive Clean Bay Area. We have currently 50 partners in the Bay Area, nonprofits, cities, agencies, utilities. It's a very broad scale collaboration. And we are about to launch Drive Clean California. And John is right. We don't have it up yet, but we do own the URL for Drive Clean America. So our purpose is to engage everyday citizens of their country, educate them about what it means to drive electric and the value of it. So let me jump into why we decided to pursue this, our carbon emissions path. And so first of all, to review the agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about the state of the EV market, some of the market fundamentals, some of the issues around environmental justice, the technology, then talk about the economic, health, and environmental benefits of switching from a gas car to electric. And then the part that I get most excited about is how we can all take action to really accelerate our reduction of carbon emissions, which I'm guessing everyone on this call knows is absolutely essential. And then a little bit about the EV 101 basics of driving electric. So about 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, transportation became the #1 source of carbon emissions in the United States. And prior to that, it was the electrical grid, but the grid has become quite a bit cleaner and continues to get cleaner. And so powering our vehicles with electricity is certainly the best way to go. So transportation, as you can see, just barely beats out electricity. Transportation is 28% of our carbon emissions, and electricity is 27%. And as I said, that percentage keeps going down. Within this transportation sector, this 28%, 59% are light duty vehicles. Those are the passenger vehicles we drive. Those are sedans, crossovers, SUVs, et cetera. So nearly 60% of all of carbon emissions in transportation are from our passenger vehicles. And this is kind of astonishing. When we started researching this, we thought maybe it would be aircraft or the trucks. But because of the number of volume of passenger vehicles that are on the roads in the United States, it is by far the most important thing we can do to reduce carbon emissions. So as I mentioned, the grid is cleaner than gasoline. This was about a year ago, and I believe now in every single state in the nation. So if you compare the gasoline MPG compared to what you can get if you're using the electrical grid, there's only 2 states that are in purple that don't have fantastic MPG yet when using the grid's electricity. And the difference is that in many states, we're using more renewable energy. And I wanted to point out something since it's very topical. So in Texas, what's happening right now is not a failure of renewable energy or of wind energy. It's a failure of the grid. Texas became their own kind of isolated island on the grid. So when they started to have problems, they couldn't import energy from other places. Excuse me. So the grid needs to be upgraded. That's happening as part of the Biden administration. That will be happening. But more or less over 48 of the 50 states using the electrical grid, even in its current configuration with a mix of natural gas and some coal, is still cleaner in 48 of the 50 states. So there's a really strong nexus between carbon emissions, climate change, and environmental justice. And it's well documented that disadvantaged communities and indigenous and people of color suffer disproportionately from the impacts of air pollution and climate change. And this is one of the reasons why I got into this 15 years ago. It's been really clear that with climate change in particular, that the low income and disadvantaged communities of the US and the world are going to suffer the first and the worst. So it really is a very strong environmental justice issue also. So when we think about, I wanted to give a broad overview of the market. It's a rapidly changing market. There's been so many things happening. You could almost spend your entire day reading about this marketplace. But I want to talk about the policy advancements, the commercial sector, what's happening there, the technology and infrastructure, and also consumer adoption, which is really the place that all of us can really deeply engage. So to begin with the policy advancements, you may have heard that the United States has rejoined the Paris Accord, which is sets global targets for all countries to reduce their carbon emissions. And we also have this new Green Act that is in Congress right now that is to accelerate the implementation of public EV charging infrastructure. Nationally, they're calling for 500,000 new public fast charging stations to be installed in the United States. And it's also a jobs bill, because if we can bring our energy, rather than importing oil and other fossil fuels from other countries, if we can use the wind and the sun and build turbines and solar panels and use geothermal and build out our infrastructure for EVs and upgrade our grid. So there's a number of things happening here that are jobs, good jobs in America. So that's obviously good for the economy. And you may have heard also that Governor Newsom has put a ban on new gas car sales by 2035. As John mentioned, I was his policy advisor from 2017 to 18 when he was running for governor. And my primary policy advice was to ban new gas cars by 2030. Frankly, 2035 is too late from a carbon emission perspective. So glad to see that there's a ban. It's important that people understand we need to move away from gas cars, but we really need to get there by 2030. So if you've paid attention to any of the news in the auto sector, you will know that GM and a number of automakers have said and committed to making their cars electric by certain dates. GM came out with a major announcement saying that they will be manufacturing all of their cars as electric by 2035. And you know, the writing's on the wall that Tesla is one of the highest valued companies in the world at this point. So obviously there's a lot financial interest from the automaker sector, and that's really moving along. There are probably about over 50 electric vehicles today, and that number just keeps building. So they've committed billions of dollars to batteries research, new models, and it's really a marketplace that is coming along. So the technology and infrastructure, excuse me, has also improved quite a bit. The range of vehicles. So when we got our first electric vehicle about 8 years ago, it was a Nissan Leaf, and we could drive about 80 miles. which to us was fantastic because we have solar on our roof and we are able to drive on the sun. You know, we were able to collect the energy from the sun and power our car with it, which is quite amazing. And I think it's still an amazing thing. Today, most of the new electric vehicles, if not all of them coming onto the market, can go over 200 miles on one charge. A lot of the cars are coming out with 300 miles. So we personally, my kids have never driven a gas car. And so we lease our vehicles. So we've had, I think, 6 or 7 electric vehicles over the past 8 years. Our daughter drives a Chevy Bolt that we got for $154 a month lease. She goes to UC Davis and she just uses fast charging. She doesn't have anywhere to charge near her apartment. And she had a funny story about 3 months ago. She had to borrow a friend's car, and for some reason, hers had a flat tire, and she needed gasoline. And she's 20 years old. She had never been to a gasoline station before. And so she had to call me. She had to FaceTime me and say, Mom, all these numbers, there's 3 different numbers and I don't know what to push. And then I can't get the nozzle into the car, it won't go. So she had to FaceTime me so I could walk her through how to charge it, how to, get gasoline. Whereas she goes to Tahoe, Los Angeles in her EV and has no problem at all. My husband and I drove across country this past summer, and we went to visit his parents who were ailing, and during COVID, we didn't want to make stops. So we took our electric vehicle, we camped in it. Pretty amazing. You can set camp mode because you're not burning any fossil fuels. There's no risk. And we just used the electricity from the car and kept nice and comfortable. So any trips are now possible in the United States on electric vehicle. The costs have dropped dramatically. It used to be, and a lot of people's impression still is, that you need to spend $80,000 on an electric vehicle. That's true. You could spend that much now. Those were the early market. You can now spend $25,000, $30,000, which is still pricey for a new car, but there are government incentives that you can get up to about $11,000 in California and in many other states around that same amount to when you buy an electric car. The government does that because when we drive electric, we improve health, we improve the environment. So there's a societal benefit to driving electric. Charging, that's another issue that has really advanced, and consumers, you can see there's so much information. It's really hard to keep up with all the changes. Consumers don't understand that charging rates have decreased by 3 to 6%, 3 to 6 times. So it used to take, say, an hour to charge your electric vehicle at a fast public charging station. And now you can charge in about 20 minutes or even less on some vehicles. So that's really been a huge improvement. And also the number of fast charging stations have really multiplied across the US. So I wanted to point out that there's basically 3 ways to charge your vehicle. One is at home and you just plug into the wall and that's it. It charges. We did that for the first 4 years when we had 2 EVs. When we got 3, we decided that we would get a second charging station. But literally, if you have somewhere to plug in, if you live in a single family home or you have access to charging at home, you can plug it into the wall. It will get about 5 miles of charge an hour. So most people don't go further than 30 miles a day. So if you just plug it in every night, you'll have a full tank in the morning. It's cheap, it's easy, it's just great. The second level is to get a home charging station, which basically requires an outlet just like you would use for your dryer. And you have a dedicated station that gets about 25 miles an hour. So if you travel more or you just want the convenience of having faster charging, you can get an electrician, install an outlet, a 240 volt outlet, and plug in there. And then where it gets a little complicated is when you're charging on the road. Unfortunately, there are three standards for charging. And I won't go into those details, but they all offer very fast charging rates, but your vehicle and the charging station need to be compatible. So later on, I'll be telling you a little bit about an app that helps with all of that. Some new and exciting things that are coming about is vehicle to grid or also vehicle to home. So with renewable energy coming onto the grid, we need more and more battery storage to save that energy for when the wind isn't blowing or the sun isn't shining. And it's a big issue. It's a big expense issue. And our electric vehicles have a tremendous amount of battery capacity, which is mostly sitting in our driveway or our garage or sitting at work most of the time. And the vehicle to grid technology allows for the grid, if you allow it on your vehicle, to take a little bit of energy from your car when they need it for peak energy, or instead that they can store a little bit of energy on your battery. They will most likely pay you for this, so you could actually end up paying nothing for your electricity. And it's a really exciting new technology. You all may have also heard about autonomous, which is coming, but it's definitely, people are saying by 2030. I'm a little bit skeptical about that. I think it's going to be a little bit later on, but it definitely offers a lot of advantages. Pretty much everybody thinks they're a better driver than a computer, but it's really not true. But for people who have disabilities, it's a huge benefit, or vision issues, et cetera. So that is coming. So this all sounds great, and you think, well, why aren't we all driving electric? Why? It's still early in the market. There's a little bit less than 2% of the registered vehicles in the United States are electric. And in California, we're up to about 7%, maybe 8% now. We need to get to at least 50% penetration in electric vehicles in California by 2030 from a carbon perspective. It absolutely can be done. I have a 200-line spreadsheet outlining how we can make this happen. The most important thing right now, two important things. One is, if you can get an electric vehicle, go get it now. It's a great time. There are great incentives. It's great in so many ways. If you can't, we ask for people to pledge that they will not buy another new gas car. Buy used, or hold on to your gas car until you can get electric, or if you don't plan to get another car ever, that's fine too. But every time we buy or lease a new gas car, it's going to be on the road for an average of 12 years. And those carbon emissions will really, won't get us where we need to go from a climate perspective. As I mentioned, there are a lot of rebates and incentives. I can share this with you all later. All of this, by the way, in terms of rebates, incentives, vehicles, is on our website at drivecleanbayarea.org. In California, and I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with all the other states and their incentives, but you can get access to an HOV carpool sticker. So you can, that's a great incentive. So you can drive alone in the carpool lane. It's convenient to charge at home, much easier than going to a gas station. With electric vehicles, they're actually very simple technology, very few moving parts. So there really aren't any scheduled maintenance visits at all. And, I don't know anybody who's ever had a problem with their electric vehicle. The maintenance costs are very, very minimal. And sometimes you get VIP parking at certain locations. So drivers who are in single family homes basically have all they need to drive electric. The electricity is about 25% of the cost of gasoline. So if you pay, $2 at the pump, you'll pay 50 cents at home. It's a great value, and that's what brings a lot of people to driving electric. If you live in an apartment or a condo, this is where the market hasn't quite advanced yet. Some people I know will just charge out of the house at a public charging facility. There are some disadvantages to that, the time it could take, and also the price of the electricity at a public charging station is not as great as the price you would get if you were charging at home. So this is an area we've been doing a lot of work on, because it is an equity issue. We want to make sure everybody has access to the clean and less expensive technology. And but there's some really exciting things coming. Well, first of all, many workplaces are now offering charging at work. As I mentioned, there's cost issues, but coming, and we just met with the CEO of a startup. There's two startups that have developed what's called a smart outlet. And basically you plug this into an outlet, a regular outlet at your parking stall if you have electricity there, or ask your property owner to bring electricity there. And then it takes care of the billing, because it's not, you really could just plug directly into the wall, but other people in the HOA probably don't want to pay for your electricity. So it's something that basically controls your billing for your electricity. So it's exciting, it's new technology, and we will definitely be promoting that once it's available. Low-income communities are also, equity issues, communities we don't want to leave behind in this. In some states, like in California, people in low-income communities can get up to almost $20,000 off for a new electric vehicle. Also, we need to have a robust used market, and the best way to build the used market is to buy or lease a new electric vehicle, and that will put more into the market for our low-income communities. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the benefits, the health, economic, and environment. So everything I've been speaking about the past X number of minutes is about kind of the state of the overall EV market, what's happening from policy, what's happening from infrastructure, what's happening in the different sectors. But now I want to talk a little bit about the economic, health, and environmental benefits. When the EPA and other governmental agencies look at what is the value to society of switching from a gas car to an electric car. So similarly, like what's the value of not allowing people to smoke inside of a restaurant for other people's health? This is similar. It's a global societal benefit. And there are economic benefits, both to the driver, because you save on gasoline and maintenance. There are economic benefits to society, new jobs, well-paying jobs, good-paying jobs. There are health benefits, which are tremendous. The American Lung Association is now actively promoting switching to electric vehicles. There's no tailpipe emissions at all. There's not even a tailpipe, as a matter of fact. And there's many health issues that come from breathing in this particulate matter that comes out of our tailpipes from gasoline. And then thirdly, it's the environmental factors, the degradation, the sea level rise, the fires. So this is a very comprehensive view. And for every time we switch from a gas car to an electric car, there's $17,000 in benefits to society. It's an enormous number. And we just did the calculations for gasoline. I'll try to get this right, for every dollar you spend on gasoline, there is a 60% cost to society. So for every dollar you're putting in, 60 cents goes against the health, environment, and economic benefits to society. It's an astonishing number, but that's how carbon intensive gasoline is. So as soon as we can get off gasoline, the better. So one question we always get is, well, what about manufacturing a new gas car or a new electric vehicle? And this is very important because obviously a vehicle is very tangible. We see these vehicles and the tires and everything that goes into it. And this got a little bit overlaid on the bottom, but I'll explain this. The orange bar at the bottom, that's the carbon emissions from manufacturing a vehicle. It's difficult to tell, but an electric vehicle has a slightly higher carbon input from manufacturing because of the battery. But you can see, I can't present this, but the highest bar, the blue bar, that's if you drive a sedan, and the blue part are tailpipe carbon emissions from gasoline. So that's in about 12,000 miles, and it's an enormous number. The next is a Prius. Is that right? Yes, the next is a Prius. So you can see that even that has, a lot of carbon emissions. And I was a Prius driver for 12 years. I know everyone driving Priuses is doing the right thing. The third down is a plug-in hybrid, which gives you some electric and some gas, which is a great option if you don't drive very far every day. And then the final is an electric vehicle powered by clean energy. anybody can get clean energy in the United States now through a provider or on their rooftop. So you can see the investment in the manufacturing from a carbon perspective is a little more for the electric vehicle, but the lifetime emissions are just, they're almost non-existent. That tiny bit is because this is calculated cradle to grave, from extraction, refining of gasoline. And with the electric vehicles, it also accounts for the energy to build wind turbines and the solar panels. So it's a very comprehensive. This is from the Union of Concerned Scientists, a very reputable group. So the point I wanted to get to next is, like I said, the thing I like the most, which is doing something about this situation, because, we all feel in many ways kind of thinking this is such a big global issue. What can we do? And any of the seminars I attend or whenever I work with elected officials, it's that classic think globally and act locally. And from a climate perspective, it's super important because most of the emissions are generated by us. People think it's industry, but it's really us. And with us, it's really about passenger vehicles. The primary issue right here is that the markets are advancing so quickly, consumers cannot keep pace. Excuse me. So consumer perceptions have only changed in one area, and that is about cost. It used to be one of the top 5 issues. Now people understand that costs are coming down, but every other issue, even though the range has improved, the charging times have decreased, all of these issues have improved. Consumers literally, poll after poll, the needle has not moved. So that's where we come in, and we hope you all as Rotary members and climate action team will come with us and help educate and engage our communities, because we have these incredible results that when we get people into a room to learn about electric vehicles, we have 98% of people who've said they're either going to buy or they will buy next, or they're going to really seriously consider it. Only 2% of people, and this is over 4,000 people, said they're still not interested. So that's an enormous testament to that people just simply don't really know. And it's understandable, it's moving so fast. So there are 3 areas that when John and Terry and I were speaking, that the Rotary at a local level might want to get involved. There's policy, which I'll speak about first. There's public charging infrastructure, and then there's community action with friends and neighbors and people in your community. So at the policy level, if you're interested in getting involved at a policy level, there's 2 different levels, federal and state, and then local. Federal and state, there's a lot of very large organizations that are pushing on policy, clean technology policies. I would recommend, if you're interested in that, to join up with, one of or many of these large national groups like Sierra Club or 350.org, and join in, sign their petitions. It really does matter. Show up at a council event. Those things matter. Locally, if your town or city does not yet have a climate action plan, definitely showing up at city council meetings and saying, we want for us to be a green community. We want to do our part in society and part of our community. And the first step is getting your city or town to commit to certain climate goals. It becomes something that then, penetrates through everything that they do as a city or town. So that's one thing. Every 2 years, typically, building codes at the state level are adopted. And these building codes really matter a lot to electric vehicles. For instance, new homes should always have EV charging ready at the home. Or if there's a new condo being built, that there's electricity in each stall. Things like that really make a difference for advancing the EV transition. There's also something called REACH codes, which many states have, and beyond what the building codes are. And you could ask your municipality to go for more advanced codes. And then also something that's not that difficult, but takes a little work, is to ask your town or city to commit to their fleet vehicles that they have EV first, that they choose to get an EV first before gas cars. Secondly, this is not for the faint of heart, but we've been working with property owners to encourage them to be open to installing level 2, those 25-mile-an-hour charging stations, or level 3, which is a super fast charging station. So if you're interested in that, I can give you more information. And then at the heart of the matter is the consumer EV adoption. And we have programs which are available to everybody, and we'd love to partner with the Rotary on bringing some of these to your individual communities. Everything from car shows, like a classic car show, gathering EV drivers, going to a mall or a parking lot when the pandemic is over, and inviting people just to look at the vehicles. People don't know all the different vehicles that are available. There's a number of webinars that we present, EV 101, ride and drive events. So a number of things that we can do together. And this is our cycle of change. So at the very top of the funnel, you'll see NGOs. That would be where the Rotary would come in, basically reaching out to your communities, bringing them in to this change. Then we engage them with programs and EV information, et cetera. So it's this whole cycle of how we educate and help people get to driving electric. So we just made up this little mock-up, and you can see the Rotary is on the bottom right. This is just an example. And this is what we're calling a drive clean-a-thon. And it's very much like a jog-a-thon or walk-a-thon, where people are interested in climate. And let's say for the particular club, we would love to do a club, a wide, broad scale reach where different clubs said, okay, we're interested in climate. We want to help this out. We're going to invite members and family and friends. And so instead of saying, I'm going to walk and raise money, instead we're asking people to come in and learn about this. So it's a Zoom meeting. We would do a little presentation. You could have your own room with your friends and family. We could measure if you wanted and track the clubs and how many people you've invited and if they pledge to make their next car electric. So the campaign is ready to run. It would be co-branded. And it's a really great way to raise awareness and reach a lot of people at one time. So here's an example of this. So at the very top, Rotary and Drive Clean co-branding. Let's see, the Alameda, Burbank, and Chicago clubs wanted to participate, and they would have their members in the orange say, yes, I want to donate my time and ask my friends and family. It's not a fundraiser. And ask their friends and family. So you can see you go from one core to many people, and that's really what's needed in this transition. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is how do we drive electric, and just a little bit of information on that. And I'm not going to go through all of the vehicles, but I want to point out that there are about 50. They're all on our website. So we invite you to go and it's interesting because these are 3 of the highest range and lowest price before incentives. So realize there's about another $10,000 you can save on many of these. And my family's had all 3 of these. We go for high range, low price, and they're really great cars. We talk about driving electric a lot, but drive clean really means either walk, bike, take public transit, anything to get out of a gas car, or less trips in a gas car. I really spend most of my time on my e-bike. It's an incredible experience if you like to bike. I have a bad knee, so it was one of the reasons I got it, and they're really fun. You always have to pedal, but you can pedal a little or a lot. It's a really great option, and I can answer questions about that as well. As I mentioned, there are these 3 levels of charging. Level 1, at home, trickle charge overnight. Level 2 is available at home or on the road, and that's about 25 miles. And then level 3, as I mentioned, there are 3 types of charging. There's a Tesla type, a Nissan Leaf, and then all the rest of the vehicles. So we have these kind of two, Tesla and Nissan, that have different fast charging, and then the rest of the world. Probably where we're going to end up is Tesla and the rest of the world. The Nissan Leaf, they'll probably be switching over very soon. And even we are hoping and we're advocating that there becomes one standard, so that just like you can go to any gas station, diesel's always been a little separate thing, but we really want one standard for consumers to be able to go to any public charging station and plug in their vehicle. They are doing that in Europe. Tesla has not brought it to the US yet, but there's a lot of political pressure for them to open up their network. This is locally. We have, excuse me, I'm in Northern California, a number of ways to plug into green energy. As I said, you can now get energy anywhere. My husband's parents live in upstate New York, and they contracted with a solar farm in, I think, Massachusetts, and they're able to get their energy put onto the grid at a little bit less than they were paying for their coal-fired power plant that they have in upstate New York. So those are all available and great options. And then charging on the road. So there's an app called PlugShare, and it's really the essential app for EV drivers. It contains all the information. The orange dots are the fast charging, those stations that can charge 75 miles in 10 minutes. So they're very, very fast. This is where the network is just growing. This is where the Biden administration will be putting a lot of money into this infrastructure. As I said, we went across country on this infrastructure. It was no problem. The green dots are the level 2, and you can't see them. There are thousands of them. So I would recommend you can go onto your computer or onto your phone and look at PlugShare. You can look in your area to see what the stations are. And I really encourage that. We talk a lot about charging on the road, but about 87% of EV drivers charge at home. So it's really people right now who live in multi-unit or travelers who need these fast charging stations. But if you drive mostly, within your region, then you really will always just plug in at home. So that's the end of my presentation, and I think we're moving on to the